And welcome back to the Red River Horror Podcast. Eddie Caiazzo with you, flying solo today. Joe Zakreski, the great Joe Zakreski, will not be joining us, but that's okay. Have no fear. He will be back on the next episode. He's the host. I'm the founder of Red River Horror. But, you know, when I have to be by myself, doesn't happen often, I always have to bring people much smarter than I am on the show to make it sound like I know what I'm doing. So, today we have Staci Layne Wilson. Give it up, Staci. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for the fanfare.
Didn't that sound really, really good?
It did. I'm impressed.
But we have another special guest. He is from Discover Lancaster, Matt Fahnestock. Matt, welcome, sir.
Hey there. Good to be with you.
All right. So you may ask why? Why do we have one of our favorite film critics in the whole world, not just because she contributes to Red River Horror, but just because, you know, the whole film landscape, and born in LA, so that's an added bonus. So we have Staci on the line, but why do we have someone from Discover Lancaster here? Well, that's because we are talking about a brand new release, not a brand new film, but a 4K UHD release of the film Witness. That's right, from 1985. So in preparation, you know, guys, we were firing some emails back and forth, and I'm always, I don't know what you call this syndrome where I always think like Philly's being cheated in some way, right? Like the refs in the game or something like that. So I'm thinking, I don't know why, I'm thinking that like Witness is unique to our area. It's just like like I'm a homer. No, I found out since then, this is why I have to bring smarter people on this podcast than I am. I didn't know this. 93% on the tomato meter. So 93% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes Witness, 80% audience score. So the critics actually liked it more than the audience, but the audience still loved it. Released on February 8th, 1985. Box office, $116 million. Ooh. So I learned quite a bit about this film, just like, oh my gosh, I must sound like an idiot when I was talking back and forth. So worthy of a brand new release on a physical format, a 4K format. And Staci, that's why I want to start with you. You had a contribution to this film. So if you could, please talk a little bit about that.
Yes, I was invited by Arrow Video to contribute as a film historian to one of the many new featurettes on this release, which is really impressive. It has a beautiful booklet, a poster. The picture is incredible, of course, in high definition Blu-ray. I mean, it looks fantastic. And my friend and colleague Lee Gambin, who works quite a lot with Arrow Video and other sort of re-release companies for vintage films, brought me on to this one. And I'm really grateful because, as most people who know you and me, Eddie, is that we're horror people and I write for Red River Horror. But I do know a little bit about other films. There is a little gory scene here, though, so maybe that's where I fit in. But I actually got to do a brand new visual essay on the film's performances. And what I did was a lot of research to find out about the performances in the films, which are really, there are so many good ones, but most people remember Harrison Ford and Kelly McGillis mainly, and Lucas Haas as the young Amish boy. But going back to 1985, it's not like you can just grab a bunch of interviews online and find out what the actors had to say about their own performances. So I had to do a lot of digging to find that, and then really got a great deal of information from Peter Weir, the director, who was Australian, actually telling this very American story. He talked a lot about the performances, so that really helped me find my foothold to what I was doing with this. And so I narrate for about 20 minutes, and the people at Arrow put together the visuals to go with what I was saying. So I did not have that to start with. I didn't know what I would be narrating to. What they basically did was find scenes that I talked about in my dissertation, for lack of a better word, and then they put it together, and they really did a fantastic job. I was really impressed and proud of the contribution.
No, Staci, that's awesome, because I always wanted to know how these things come together, what they decide to do when they, Arrow says, okay, I'm going to buy and re-release this film. So it's very cool to understand the process behind it. I'm just looking at some of the extras here. So we got the 4K cut, or 4K restoration of the film, lossless audio. All right, audio commentary with Jarrett Gahan. Sorry if I screwed that up. Interview with the cinematographer, John Seal.
I don't know him, so I can't tell you, but yeah, I mean, they have a new video interview with the cinematographer, and a lot of people talk about just how incredibly beautiful and luscious and amazing the cinematography was. Not only the really beautifully lit interiors, but the beautiful locations. And I'm sure that we can talk about that a little bit more, about where it was shot. Fantastic. And then they have the vintage 1985 interview with Harrison Ford. That was like one of the few that I could find actually when I was doing my research. And like I said, I had to put together my essay before I really knew what the visuals would be. So there wasn't a lot of guidance, which is okay. I mean, I'm glad that they trusted me to do my thing, and then they put the visuals to it. But yeah, I mean, there's so much more. I mean, you have the list, right, Eddie? Maybe you can mention a couple other things that they have there.
Oh, absolutely. So yes, I got to also be on mic here. So we have the new video interview with cinematographer John Seal, the visual essay that you put together, vintage 1985 interview, Harrison Ford. I just wanted to highlight that because I don't know if you guys, before we move further, I don't know if you guys have a Harrison Ford story. Do you have a Harrison Ford story?
I have interviewed him myself a few times.
Well, that
not
tops
the warmest,
mine already.
Fuzziest person. Yeah, he's not. He doesn't really like interviews. And you can tell, actually, when you look at that 1985 interview, he's very... 2-3 word answers and very matter of fact, and cuts right to the bone. He doesn't really embellish or elaborate. He's not super friendly, but that's okay. He does what he does, and he did a fantastic job in Witness acting, and that was really his only Academy Award winning performance, which is kind of surprising when you think about all the films that he's in that we love and how good he is.
Wow. Academy Award. I am just, guys, thank you for joining me on this. That's it. Good night, everybody. No, I didn't. So he won an Academy Award for Witness?
He did. His only one so far. There's still time. But yeah, it's surprising when you think about it, that this is actually really his first film where he wasn't playing a cartoon character. It wasn't a Star Wars or an Indiana Jones.
True.
I mean, he really got to craft a whole different person,
and
a very relatable person.
Matt, do you have a Harrison Ford story?
Oh, well, I'm pretty sure Indiana Jones is one of the first movies that my dad ever showed me growing up. So, I mean, instantly connected with that character. Star Wars wasn't too far behind that. But then just thinking about some of his other roles, Blade Runner is another really iconic role, and that's what makes his Witness role so unique, is that it was kind of a departure from this very sci-fi adventure character that he'd been playing across a bunch of different films. So,
all right,
a lot of iconic Harrison Ford roles for sure.
So my Harrison Ford story just goes like this. I used to work in Center City, Philadelphia. This was back in 2011 or 2012. So you guys can fact check me on this because I have no idea what the hell film it was for. But they were filming in downtown Philly, and we're not used to that, like that kind of the big production. There's like trucks and a bunch of lights and all that stuff. So my wife actually met me downtown. I drove down for work earlier in the day, but she met me down there, and we went out to dinner. And it was the parking lot right off of Rittenhouse Square. So a little local knowledge is needed here. So we're off Rittenhouse Square in the parking garage there. So we finally were going back to get the car, and there's a cop there, and he won't let us into the parking garage. And I'm just like, dude, I'm like, I need, like, I'm parked in here. I need to get my car. He's just like, well, no, sorry, you can't come in here. I'm just like, what are you talking about? I need to get the hell out of here. So it turns out Harrison Ford and Chris Hemsworth, they were filming something in that parking lot, it like where my car was. So me just being stupid, like, I don't know if you could do this now, but I'm just like, the hell with this. I'm just going in. So I did. I didn't see Chris Hemsworth. I didn't see Harrison Ford, but sitting in one of the cars outside when I drove out was Miley Cyrus, because she was dating Chris Hemsworth at the time. So
that's right. Yeah, they were married for a while, even.
Right. So not to take us too much off track, I'm just saying, like, Harrison Ford story, for some reason, I was in the same space as Harrison Ford for like 20 minutes. Pretty cool.
Breathing the same air. Wow.
Right. So bringing it back to Witness, in the film, there's, again, you know, Witness isn't a horror film, but I would say it's probably the first time I've ever seen horror, like a slasher like thing, committed on screen, because there's a murder happens in Philadelphia. Sadly, it happens all the time now, but as like we go through the film, we start in Philadelphia with the murder, and then we make our way out to Lancaster County, Amish country. Matt, that's where you come in. So we talk about these visuals, like, why would there be a 4K restoration of a film like this? And me going into this not knowing, wow, okay, it's an Academy Award winner. Maybe that's why, probably why. But so we get out to Lancaster County, which is, you know, when I was younger, that was a whole part of like my world. Like, I think of a lot of people in Philadelphia and of course New York, like a lot of people travel to Lancaster County to experience the Amish heritage. They're not used to seeing horse and buggies riding around the street, but there's so much more to it. So that's where, Matt, I want to bring you in and let us know if you could tell us anything about the area, where it was shot. What can you tell us about Witness and Lanco?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can only imagine I haven't seen the 4K restoration myself yet. I hope to very soon, but I can only imagine that it's the next best thing to actually being there and experiencing the farmland in person. I mean, it's seeing it in person and then 4K right below it, right? And that's really what I think the film does a great job of conveying is just how beautiful the landscape is out in the countryside. It really kind of unmatched farmland, and the Amish are a big part of that. They're obviously their heritage here, and being able to nurture the land well. And then there's just all of the other things that Lancaster County has to offer as well. And so the Amish are obviously a huge part of the foundation of what makes Lancaster County a unique destination. And then there's so much more that you can add to that to make your trip even more special. And that's really what Discover Lancaster is about, is inspiring people to come and visit Lancaster and experience the area for itself. And certainly a lot of people hear about Lancaster for the first time by seeing Witness. We get that quite a bit. Not that it's 40 years old at this point, so there's definitely, you know, a certain demographic that's very familiar with it. But I think that bringing it back into the limelight, if you will, after as it hits its 40-year mark, is going to really bring it in front of a lot of new eyes. And that's going to be something that we need to be aware of too, is making sure that we're honoring this film and appreciating it for what it is.
And that's one of the things I wanted to talk about, because I don't know, I've never, I guess, experienced any Witness like experiences out in Lancaster County. So I didn't know, you know, like there's a plaque at Pat's Steaks in Philly that says, you know, hey, Rocky was filmed, like your Sylvester Stallone stood right here to film Rocky. So there's like historical markings. I mean, obviously our city's so much more than just Rocky, but I'm just saying, like we have that down. He even has a freaking statue of himself at the art museum that people get pictures with. So, Staci, what's cool is now this 4K UHD re-release has become a nice new marketing tool for Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. But Matt, is there anywhere that is celebrated within the county? Because, you know, this is a Hollywood film. Like these were Kelly McGillis, Harrison Ford. They were huge at the time. Danny Glover, who's one of my all-time favorite actors. Yeah, I mean, this was a big deal. Usually we see those things filmed out in Hollywood, but this was filmed right here in our backyard.
Right, and that is something that makes the film so special too, is that they really could have shot it anywhere, but they decided to shoot it on location, and that makes it all the more special, feel all the more authentic. I'll say that I'm not really aware of any specific like plaques or anything that are dedicated specifically to witness, but there are certainly a lot of the same those places within the county that they filmed the movie don't really change much for I think obvious reasons. So the farm is still in existence. It's not open to the public anymore. I think it was at one point, but there is a local tour company that one of their tours will take you to the farm and you can see it in person. It's kind of a unique experience there. The company is called Lucal, and they run a bunch of different tours around the county. And one of those, like I said, takes you, among other places, to the farm that the movie was shot at. I know that in the town of Intercourse, there are a bunch of, I know the phone booth that he famously calls his partner, that's still there. One of the few phone booths that's left.
So it's a functioning phone booth right now.
I don't think it's functioning. I think it's just still there.
Yeah.
I don't think it still works, but it's just there as an eternal prop.
Because hey, Harrison Ford used this phone.
He used that phone. Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
And then I do know that the fight scene was also where Harrison Ford punches the guy in the face. That was also filmed right on Queen Road in the town of Intercourse. So there are a couple of things there. And then I know the police station scene was actually, I think that looks like it's taking place in Philly. It was actually filmed in Lancaster. And so that's right off the square in Lancaster City. There's an old building there that they turned into the police station for the inside shots. And then the scene where Harrison Ford gets shot was filmed in Lancaster City as well. So a couple of places in Lancaster City that would be of note. And then the last thing, and I think this is pretty cool. I just found this out today, actually. About 10 minutes away from Lancaster City in Mountville, Pennsylvania, there's a business called Country Barn Market. It's a functioning farm. And they actually have the silo from the film. The guy gets buried in corn under that.
Yes.
Was relocated. It wasn't shot in Lancaster, but it was relocated to Lancaster, and you can still see it today. So kind of all over the county, there are these notable mile markers of the film, and some really cool things that people can check out for sure.
That's awesome. And that's important. I'm glad you brought up Lancaster City, because Lancaster County itself is so massive. So people, when you think of Lancaster, you think of the horse and buggies and the Amish, but it really is like there's a whole, I remember I DJ'd a few weddings downtown Lancaster. I was at some rooftop bar like a year ago that they put, it's just, it's important to get across that, yes, Lancaster is beautiful, but it's also massive, and it does have a center city area. We like to say that you'll find something, no matter what your preferences are, you'll find something that you can enjoy in Lancaster County, whether it's the Amish heritage and kind of experiencing this culture that you can't really find many other places in the world, or whether you want that farm to table restaurant experience, or you want that downtown shopping scene. You can find it in Lancaster County, and that again is what makes it such a unique place. Staci, is there anything you? Yeah,
I think that's why it was. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I think we're on a lag here. You take it away.
Yeah, I was going to build on that. That you're right. It is such a unique place, and that both Harrison Ford and Kelly McGillis lived there for at least a week or two prior to jumping into filming, so that they could really immerse themselves in sort of the experience of being there. And I know that Kelly McGillis actually lived with an Amish widow and her 7 children for a few days to get that experience. And I don't think I know you couldn't get that from any acting coach in Hollywood. I mean, it's really important that both actors really dived into their characters by being in the location where they would be set.
And I think that And Matt, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a little bit of, I guess, controversy in that. I mean, of course, I did learn leading up to this interview here that, no Amish were in the film. Like, there were no Amish actors in the film because they don't appear on camera.
So I think that's kind of something that people don't expect when they come and visit Lancaster. Is it can be very easy, especially in the days of cell phones, to pull out your phone and try and snap a picture of them. That's something that they don't like and would prefer to stay away from. And so I think just as a more of a private culture, a reserved culture, one that stays away from the world, as they would refer to it, it was a bit of a shock that there would be a film that would, enter their community in this sense, and almost. But I think the film kind of touches on that too, where Kelly McGinnis it says like they come and they take pictures of us or something to that effect, and it kind of gawking at us, kind of almost turning the camera back around at the viewer and saying, "This is what you're coming to see. Are you sure you want to come and see this? We're just people." So, definitely kind of an interesting dynamic there, but one that I think, at least in my experience, and I've lived in Lancaster County my whole life, one that the Amish also see the benefit of as well. I mean, people are coming and visiting their businesses and purchasing their furniture and their home-baked, whoopie pies and, other baked goods and stuff. I mean, they're seeing the economic impact of, what their culture brings to this area.
Yeah, there's no way. I was up in Massachusetts and they do the whoopie pie thing up there. They don't have anything on the Amish whoopie pies are hands down the best. There's nothing in the world like it.
No question. Yeah.
Okay, I'm a West Coast person. What's a whoopie pie?
We'll go 2 cake-like cookie-shaped things with a nice cream in the middle, and then when you bite it, it goes everywhere.
So picture an ice cream sandwich, except a baked good, but it tastes much more sugary and buttery in the best way.
Yeah, that's a great way of describing it. Yeah.
But yes, like, so that's so obviously there were no Amish in the film, but Kelly McGillis and Harrison Ford are like learning, like kind of immersing themselves in the culture to get into their roles. And Staci, that's one thing I wanted to bring up kind of is in horror space, the slow burn. It's one of my favorite style of films is the slow burn. I mean, obviously the most famous recent one was Get Out. That's what I think was awarded properly. So we could call that a slow burn. It follows like those kind of films. I'm not a huge fan of the ones that are super depressing that they've been releasing recently. Not to say that they're not great films. I just can't handle that.
I hear you. Like Hereditary or Midsommar. I mean, those are seriously depressing, but
right. They're amazing films. But I think I mention this on this podcast all the time. It's sometimes on a Friday night, you just want to see Jason Lives and not like The Dark and the Wicked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Witness.
But they do hook you in with, they do hook you in with the murder with Witness. I mean, Peter Weir was already a very experienced filmmaker in Australia. I believe this was his first film shot in America for the American market. So he had already done, I believe, A Picnic at Hanging Rock, which is a slow burn sort of horror film, horror thriller. But so he does, he definitely hooks you in with the action in the beginning, and then he reels it back in and takes it slow, and then it ramps up again. So it's very well paced film, I think.
So the next time I'm going to see this film, it's going to be on the 4K UHD version. I'm not going to be, I'm not going to cheat and just go stream it somewhere. I'm going to get this, Staci, I promise, because
it's well worth having.
Same here.
Because I want to see everything that was done. I mean, something just feels better about learning from the people that made the film, the people that have studied to create brand new work for the film, as you did. There's something to learning from that and learning for what what's provided to you, as opposed to just going on the like Reddit or something or Wikipedia and just
well, what
reading.
I like about it is that they have period, from the period 1985, some featurettes and interviews. So you have that where it's brand new to everyone who's talking about it. And then you have people, 30, 40 years later talking about it with a lot of perspective. So it gives you those two kind of different points of view that you can delve into either one. And then, of course, there's the amazing written essays, too. John Harrison and Amanda Reyes are both friends and colleagues of mine whose writing I greatly admire. And so you can absorb the knowledge in many different ways. You can read, you can watch, you can listen. And so it gives you a lot of ways to learn about the film and have a deeper appreciation for not only the way it was made, but the legacy that it's now spawned over all this time.
Yeah, that's right. Wow. Limited edition 60-page booklet, a fold-out double-sided poster, folks, and I think you'll like this, Matt, 6 double-sided collector's postcards. So maybe, I don't know. Maybe there's some synergy there. Maybe you can start offering postcards from the film. Just a thought. There we go. But Staci, how long does it take to put together something like a visual essay? So again, I'm learning so much about what goes into these re-releases. I guess I'll say, not to bring up Friday the 13th, but they did the same thing where they released all 12 films in a box, and there was just so much stuff, not just included physically that a lot of collectors like to get their hands on, but also, new features, complete new features shot for that release specifically.
Yeah, I was a part of that one too. Crystal Lake, what was it called? That's so long ago. Crystal Lake Revisited or something like that, where I got to actually play a role in a little spoof recreation of what might have happened to the victims' families. I was the sister of one of the victims, and so that was kind of fun. So that doesn't take a whole lot of preparation. Dan Ferens did an excellent job of directing me on a stripper pole. So those of you who have not seen it yet, there's a little incentive. And then I also got to be a talking head as a film historian myself. So for this one, Witness, I was just told, give us a 20-minute talk that's going to be put to video about the performances of the film. So you really have to narrow your focus. So that is a little challenging because there wasn't a lot about the performances of the film dating back that far. A lot of that stuff is not indexed on the internet, so you can't really go back. I did read a bunch of reviews, which kind of informed what I said, but I didn't quote from many of the reviews. Of course, Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel had a review. Pauline Kael had a review. So they talked about the performances, so I could incorporate that into what I was going to say. But there wasn't a lot of guidance. It was just here, give us 20 minutes on the performances. And so there was not guidelines that I really had to adhere to, which gives you a lot of freedom. But then again, it gives you more like, oh, what am I supposed to do? Luckily, they didn't ask me to change anything. They liked what I did. And so it was good. But I've been doing this for a long time. I've been covering films and premieres and red carpets and writing reviews and doing film essays since 2002. So it's fairly easy for me, but it is time consuming. I had to watch the movie 2 or 3 times, just an initial watch without taking any notes, just see like what stuck in my memory, and then go through it again and then do some research and then look at the film to see what people were talking about back then that I could use. So, and then I write it, as a writer. So it has to read as well as it does match to visuals. And like I said, I did not know what the visuals would be. So they had to find clips to illustrate what I was talking about. And they did a great job. The editor really did some fun segues. So I'm really proud and pleased with it.
Matt, is there anything you can add? I want to have respect for you guys' time. You've been very generous with your time, and I thank you. Is there anything you'd like to add? I just kind of wanted to have this conversation with the both of you because going into it, I'm just thinking, man, like this is one of the most underrated films ever, not knowing all of what I know now about its box office take, how the critics felt about it, and pretty much it being an Academy Award winner. But it's one of those movies that I saw that my dad had on VHS that I just absolutely loved. It stood the test of time for me. And I can't say that, both you guys, I think, appreciate cinema more than I do. You have an appreciation for the craft, for what people that make movies. I did not have that same appreciation, especially seeing this for the first time and the second time. Like, it was more of the hook for me was just the local knowledge. Like, I know Philadelphia, it's my home. I know Lancaster County because it's where I went when I was younger, where we ate a lot of great food and went to Dutch Wonderland, so I could connect all of those things. I wasn't really brought in from the cinema side of it. It was more just like, oh, cool, there's a lot of things that I know in this movie. So I really wanted to have this conversation, and thank you guys for taking some time to do it. So I guess I'll leave you with this. Matt, is there anything you'd like to add to this conversation? Anything I didn't touch on? The floor is yours. Yeah, sure. Yeah. One final thought about the movie, specifically, in watching it recently, actually, I was struck by the soundtrack, actually. And I think the soundtrack is a good, benchmark for what the film seeks to accomplish, right? You got these really tense Philly scenes, and the score from there is almost kind of out of like a John Carpenter thriller, right? Where it's this really like pounding synth, driving synth, meant to build tension, and then you get transported into almost this like ethereal sci-fi soundtrack of Lancaster County, where you're getting transported into a completely different time period in some sense. You're being transported into a different universe, and I think that's a good metaphor for what you experience when you come to Lancaster. That you are being transported into a different place than what surrounds it. We're kind of centrally located between a bunch of big cities, while you can still get that big city feel in Lancaster, you still get those wide open rolling hills and the beautiful farmland and some really high quality food, like you mentioned, and all of these great attractions. And so I guess that's kind of my final thought there is that that's what makes Lancaster County this special place. And you can find all of the information you need to about Lancaster by visiting our website at discoverlancaster.com. All right. Matt Fahnestock, Staci Layne Wilson, anything to add, anything to close with?
Well, I don't think you need to be a film historian or a cinephile to enjoy Witness, because there are so many characters that you can relate to. Whether you're a kid, you relate to the child in the story, or if you're a woman, or you're a man. I feel like there's so many different characters that anyone can relate to or feel like I've experienced that, or what would I do if I were in that situation? So I think it's just a great story. So it can be enjoyed on many different levels.
And now we have a 4K UHD version of it. I finally got a 4K TV, and my wife surprised me with a 4K UHD player, because we had this. I don't know if you're familiar with Ardmore, PA. It's just a suburb right outside of Philly, on the main line. They had a video rental store. It was called Viva Video, the last video store. And they rented 4K UHDs. I'm just like, all right, this is awesome. Well, punchline, they closed. So now I'm going to have to buy every 4K UHD movie, like the re-release of Witness, which I can't wait to. But I'm just saying now, like, how many copies of Star Wars do you have already, right? Like, I already have the VHS and the DVD. Do I have to get another Star Wars now to experience the 7.1? But anyway, just I'm going off the rails here.
We do it because we love it, right?
Exactly. Like a Christopher Nolan film that you really got to see on. Like, if you're not going to catch it in theaters, then 4K UHD is the way to go. I'm just saying.
Oppenheimer is great on DVD, but man, seeing it on a on that IMAX screen was insane, right?
Well,
yeah. Unlike the Amish, we want to keep up with the times and look at the upgraded, beautiful picture of Witness. Yeah, it really is well done, the way they up-resed it. And the sound is incredible, too. I mean, it's not just the visuals, it's the sound and the music is fantastic.
All right, and I promise this is the last thing. So, Staci, you already said The Shining, I think, was your favorite horror film of all time?
Yes.
All right. So, Matt, whenever we have a new guest on the show, they have to name their favorite horror film. So, what's your favorite horror film?
Oh, boy. I'm going to have to go with Silence of the Lambs. Would you consider that horror?
Whoa.
Yes.
Silence of the Lambs, for sure.
And this is great because Joe, the podcast, the host, is not here today. And the best thing is we had the biggest argument over, like, he says it's not. He says it's not a horror film. I said it is. So the funny thing is, over a bunch of, like, when we started early on in the podcasts, it was people like Staci and Daniel Farrens and Jeffrey Reddick that said it was a horror film. So I'm like, sorry, Joe, I win on this one. It is.
Outvoted.
You're outnumbered.
So thank you guys. Staci Layne Wilson, one of our favorites, film critic, historian, filmmaker, just one of the best all around. Now in Vegas, originally from LA.
That's right.
So thank you for your time.
Well, thank you.
Matt Fahnestock from Discover Lancaster, all the great visuals that you will see in Witness 4K UHD, the re-release here. You can actually visit all that countryside, everything that we talked about. So thank you as well, Matt.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And thank you, folks, for listening to the Red River Horror Podcast. Like I said, Joe Zakreski will be back with you next time. I'm Eddie Caiazzo, founder of Red River Horror. And remember to keep traveling those channels of fear.